Alright folks, let's talk about India. Before the British rocked up, it wasn't exactly a ghost town. We're talking about the Mughal Empire, a dynasty dripping in jewels, ruling over a land that practically invented the word spice. They had the Taj Mahal, for crying out loud. That's like their version of Buckingham Palace, but with way better Instagram potential. Now, imagine you're a 17th century British trader, smelling cinnamon for the first time, mind blown. You see the riches, the silks, the jewels, and you think, we'll take 10 of everything, please. And thus began the British East India Company's grand adventure. A tale as dramatic as a Bollywood movie, with slightly fewer musical numbers. Think of it as Game of Thrones, but with tea instead of dragons. Picture this. A bunch of British merchants, fresh off the boat, trying to negotiate trade deals with powerful Mughal emperors. It's like trying to sell timeshares to a lion ambitious but potentially hazardous to your health. They started small, setting up trading posts like kids setting up lemonade stands. But these weren't your average entrepreneurs. They were ambitious, ruthless, and had a serious case of, we'd like to rule this place now, thanks. The Mughals, busy with their own internal squabbles, initially dismissed them as pushy tourists. Big mistake. The company played local rulers against each other, exploiting weaknesses like a seasoned chess master. Before anyone knew it, they'd gone from selling spices to collecting taxes. Talk about a hostile takeover. The East India Company's rise to power wasn't exactly a fairy tale. In fact, it was more like a masterclass in cunning, manipulation, and ruthless ambition. The company started as a humble trading venture, but soon realized that spices and silks weren't the only things up for grabs in India. Power was too. They weren't above exploiting rivalries, bribing officials, and even engaging in a bit of good old-fashioned military might. Whenever a local ruler hesitated, the company was quick to offer gold or threats. Their playbook was as thick as their ledgers, and just as creative. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 was a turning point. It wasn't just a clash of armies, but a carefully orchestrated coup with secret deals and betrayals behind the scenes. The company's leaders knew how to stack the odds in their favor. Imagine a bunch of British soldiers, outnumbered but armed with superior firepower, facing off against the Nawab of Bengal's forces. It's like bringing a tank to a knife fight. The outcome was almost inevitable, but the real genius was in how the company set the stage for victory. The British victory paved the way for their domination of Bengal, one of India's richest regions. With Bengal under their thumb, the company gained access to unimaginable wealth and resources, fueling their ambitions even further. They followed this up with a series of treaties and annexations, gradually expanding their control like a stain on a silk carpet. Each agreement tightened their grip, and soon the company was calling the shots across vast territories. They were masters of divide and conquer, turning rulers into puppets and kingdoms into cash cows. By playing local leaders against each other, the company ensured that resistance was scattered and weak. And let's not forget their secret weapon, bureaucracy. They introduced a complex system of administration that would make even the most seasoned accountant reach for a stiff drink. With endless paperwork and red tape, the company made sure every rupee and every rule worked in their favor, cementing their control for generations. Now, life under the Raj wasn't all bad. It was a time of contradictions, where old traditions met new influences, and daily life was a blend of the familiar and the foreign. Sure, being ruled by a foreign power wasn't exactly a picnic, but the British did introduce some things that weren't entirely awful. In fact, some of their contributions ended up shaping modern India in ways that are still felt today. They built railways, which, let's face it, were a major upgrade from ox carts. Suddenly, people and goods could travel across vast distances, connecting cities and villages like never before. They also introduced a postal system, so you could finally send that strongly worded letter to your aunt in the next province. Communication became faster, and the idea of a connected nation started to take root. But let's not get carried away with the nostalgia. For every fond memory, there were plenty of hardships and injustices that people had to endure. The Raj had its fair share of less than ideal aspects. Poverty, inequality, and unrest were part of daily life for many Indians. There were things like the Thuggee and Sati Suppression Acts, which, while well-intentioned, felt a bit like your nosy neighbor telling you how to run your household. The British often imposed their own values, sometimes ignoring the complexities of Indian society. Then there was the whole Indians and dogs not allowed signs, which were about as classy as a monocle at a rave. These signs were a daily reminder of the discrimination and exclusion faced by Indians in their own land. Let's just say, cultural sensitivity wasn't exactly their strong suit. The British often misunderstood or dismissed Indian customs, leading to awkward encounters and a lasting sense of cultural disconnect. Things came to a head in 1857 with the Sepoy Mutiny, or as some historians prefer to call it, the First War of Indian Independence. The spark? Well, it was rumors of rifle cartridges greased with animal fat, which offended both Hindu and Muslim soldiers. Imagine being told your religious beliefs are less important than a greasy cartridge. Talk about adding fuel to the fire. The mutiny spread like wildfire, engulfing northern India. It was a brutal and bloody affair, with atrocities committed on both sides. The British eventually crushed the rebellion, but it was a wake-up call. It showed them that ruling India by brute force alone wouldn't cut it. They needed a new approach, one that involved slightly less, oppressing people. Enter Queen Victoria, stage right, the world's most powerful monarch, stepping onto a stage that stretched from London all the way to the Indian subcontinent. Her arrival marked the beginning of a new era, one that would reshape the destinies of millions. After the mutiny, the British government decided it was time to take direct control of India. The days of distant corporate rule were over. Now the Crown would call the shots, and the British Parliament would oversee the vast territory. No more of this East India Company nonsense. The company's mismanagement and greed had led to chaos, and so it was swiftly shown the door, its power dissolved almost overnight. Queen Victoria, never one to turn down a shiny new jewel for her crown, became Empress of India in 1887. This grand title was more than just ceremonial, it was a symbol of British dominance and imperial ambition. Think of it as a massive promotion, but with a lot more responsibility and probably a lot more paperwork. The British bureaucracy expanded, with officials and clerks now managing everything from taxes to trade. Under the Raj, India underwent significant changes. Cities grew, new laws were introduced, and the very fabric of Indian society began to shift under the weight of foreign rule. The British built roads, canals, and irrigation systems, some of which are still in use today. Railways connected distant regions, transforming trade and travel across the subcontinent. They also introduced a Western education system, which, while often criticized for its colonial bias, did help create a new Indian elite. This educated class would later play a crucial role in India's struggle for independence, but the Raj also had its downsides. For many Indians, British rule meant loss of autonomy, cultural upheaval, and growing resentment. Famines continued to plague the country, and British economic policies often benefited their industries at the expense of Indian ones. The legacy of Victoria's Indian Empire is complex, marked by both progress and profound hardship. The legacy of the British Raj is a complex and often contradictory one. On the one hand, they left behind a legacy of infrastructure, education, and administration. They also introduced tea drinking on an industrial scale, which, let's be honest, is a gift that keeps on giving. On the other hand, their rule was marked by exploitation, cultural insensitivity, and a fair bit of "we know what's best for you" paternalism. They unified India under a single administrative system, but also sowed the seeds of division that would later lead to the partition. The Raj was a period of immense change and upheaval, leaving an indelible mark on the Indian psyche. By the 20th century, the winds of change were blowing across India. A new generation of Indian leaders armed with Western education and a burning desire for self-rule emerged. Figures like Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel led the charge for independence, using nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience to challenge British rule. Imagine a bunch of guys in dhotis staring down an empire armed with nothing but willpower and some seriously good protest songs. Talk about a power move. After World War II, weakened and exhausted, Britain finally agreed to grant India its independence. But freedom came at a price. The country was partitioned into India and Pakistan, leading to one of the largest mass migrations in human history and horrific violence. It was a bittersweet victory, tinged with the pain of division and the scars of colonial rule. So, there you have it, folks, the British Raj in a nutshell. It was a wild ride, full of drama, intrigue, and enough historical baggage to fill a fleet of cargo ships. The Raj left an undeniable mark on India, shaping its political, economic, and cultural landscape. It's a history that continues to fascinate, provoke, and remind us of the complexities of colonialism and the enduring struggle for freedom. And if nothing else, at least we got some good curry recipes out of it.